We're continuing in the explanation of Nukhbat Al-Fikar by Imam Ibn Hajar. He first gave us a history of hadith terminology. Then he explained for us the successive mass narration, al-mutawatir, khabarul mutawatir. Then he explained for us khabarul ahad, the reports of individuals. He told us that there's three divisions of that. Al-mashhur, the famous report, which could be called also al-mustafid, the widespread report. That's one. Al-aziz, that's the report of not less than two. And al-gharib, the report of a loner, which is the report of a single individual. And he finished with that. And now he wants to talk about what he wants to talk about a hadith being acceptable or not acceptable. Not what makes it acceptable or unacceptable, just the issue of being acceptable or unacceptable. And so he says, may Allah have mercy upon him. وَفِيهَا أَيِ الْآحَادِ الْمَقُبُولِ. And some of those reports of individuals are acceptable. وَهُوَ مَا يَجِبُ الْعَمَلُ بِهِ عِنْدَ الْجُمْهُورِ. According to the majority, that means, yani, not acceptable, accepted, let's say. Accepted. Amongst them are the reports that are accepted. And that is, according to the majority, what it's obligatory to practice. So if I ask you, what's the definition of an accepted hadith or an accepted narration? You should say to me, it means that it's obligatory to practice it. That doesn't mean that it's obligatory to believe that the Prophet said it with those words. Alayhi salatu wassalam. We're talking now about the obligation of application. We're talking now about the obligation of application. وَهُوَ مَا يَجِبُ الْعَمَلُ بِهِ عِنْدَ الْجُمْهُورِ. The accepted report or hadith is what's obligatory to practice according to the majority. وَفِيهَا الْمَرْدُودِ. And some of those reports of individuals are rejected. وَهُوَ الَّذِي لَمْ يَرْجَحْ صِدْقُ الْمُخْبِرِ بِهِ. Then you might imagine that its definition would be, it's what's not obligatory to practice, or something like that, because you found the words opposites. What's the definition of mardud? It is that which the truthfulness of its reporter is not preponderant. Yani, it's the report that the truthfulness of its reporter has not appeared to be likely. لتوقف الاستدلال بها على البحث عن أحوال رواتها. And the reason there are these two types of reports, accepted and rejected, is because in order to use these reports as evidence, we have to research the situations of their narrators. Using these reports is dependent upon researching the situations of their narrators. So the report comes, and then we have to see who reported it, once we determine that its source is reliable, then we'll accept it. Dun al-awwal, but this dependency, this condition here of having to research the narrators is not the case of the first type of hadith we talked about, وهو المتواتر, the successive mass report. It doesn't have such a condition for accepting it. فَكُلُّهُ مَقْبُولٌ, all mutawatir reports are acceptable. Yani, there's no mutawatir report that's rejected. لِإِفَادَتِهِ الْقَطْعَ بِصِدْقِ مُخْبِرِهِ, because it promotes definitiveness about the honesty of its reporter. If it's successive mass report, then the honesty of the reporter is verified. بخلاف غيره من أخبار الآحاد, as opposed to another type of report, which is the reports of individuals, one person or two people or three people. لكن إنما وجب العمل بالمقبول منها لأنها إما أن يوجد فيها أصل صفة القبول. He says, however, it's only obligatory to practice what's acceptable or what's accepted. It's obligatory to practice, to apply what's accepted out of all these hadiths. لأنها إما أن يوجد فيها أصل صفة القبول, because either the fundamental reason for acceptance is existent, the fundamental reason for acceptance is present, وهو ثبوت صدق الناقل, which is the confirmation of the reporter being honest, the confirmation of the reporter's honesty. أو أصل صفة الرد, or else it's going to be rejected because there is existing in it the fundamental reason for rejection. وهو ثبوت كذب الناقل, which is the confirmation of the reporter lying. The confirmation of the reporter lying. أو لا, or there's a third way, or neither of those. So he says, the reason there's accepted reports and rejected reports is because either there's going to be in a report the fundamental reason for accepting the report, which is that the reporter is honest, or there's going to be the fundamental reason for not accepting the report, which is confirming that the reporter is lying. Ola, or neither of those. So how's that? He's going to explain now. فالأول يغلب على الظن صدق الخبر. The first case, which is that there exists the fundamental reason for accepting the report, the honesty of the reporter. So then, when the reporter is an honest reporter, يغلب على الظن صدق الخبر, then for the news to be true is compelling. If the reporter is honest, then for the news to be true is compelling. لثبوت صدق ناقله فيؤخذ به, and therefore it will be taken, meaning it will be practiced, applied. والثاني يغلب على الظن كذب الخبر لثبوت كذب ناقله. And the second case, it's compelling that the news is untrue because it's confirmed that the reporter is a liar. فَيُطْرَحْ, so then the report would be thrown away. And then there's a third case. وَالثَّالِثُ إِنْ وُجِدَتْ قَرِينَةٌ تُلْحِقُهُ بِأَحَدِ الْقِسْمَيْنِ الْتَحَقَ. And the third, which is that neither one of those is there. There is not in the report, there's not present in the report the fundamental reason for accepting the report, nor is there the fundamental reason for rejecting the report. That means not confirmed for you that the reporter is honest, nor is it confirmed for you that the reporter is a liar. So then, what's its case? In wujidat qarinatun tulhiquhu bi ahadil qismain, if there's a clue that makes this neutral one follow one of those two previous categories, iltahaq, then it will be annexed to that category. وَإِلَّا فَيُتَوَقَّفُ فِيهِ, or else, if there's no clue, so that we can annex this neutral one to accept it or reject it, then it is suspended. This report is suspended. It's in limbo. فَإِذَا تُوقِفَ عَنِ الْعَمَلِ بِهِ صَارَ كَالْمَرْدُودِ. And then, once practicing it is suspended, then it becomes similar to a rejected narration. It's not a rejected narration, but it's like a rejected narration. لا لثبوت صفة الرد, not because the reason for rejection is confirmed, بل لكونه لم توجد فيه صفة توجب القبول. Rather, it's going to be because the reason for accepting it isn't present. Such a reason isn't present. Wallahu a'lam. Is there any question about that so far? He says, وَقَدْ يَقَعُ فِيهَا أي في أخبار الآحاد المنقسمة إلى مشهور وعزيز وغريب ما يفيد العلم النظري بالقرائن على المختار. And there could occur amongst the reports of individuals, those reports that are divided into famous, mashhur, and aziz, and gharib, the famous report and the aziz report and the report of the loner. There could occur amongst these reports ما يفيد العلم النظري بالقرائن, that which promotes pondered knowledge, proven knowledge. That which promotes pondered knowledge, proven knowledge, not necessary knowledge. He's saying some of these reports that are less than successive mass reports, they could possibly promote knowledge, but it would be a pondered knowledge. Bil qara'in, if these reports have the clues, if there are certain clues, then these reports could promote knowledge. Ala al-mukhtar, according to the chosen saying. Khilafan liman aba dhalik, as opposed to who disagreed with that, who refused that. والخلاف في التحقيق لفظي, and the difference here in reality is semantics. So he just said something here, looks like there's two sayings. He's saying In reality, the difference here is semantics. How to define things. لأن من جوز إطلاق العلم قيده بكونه نظريا, because those who said that these reports that are not successive mass reports sometimes could possibly promote knowledge, those who permitted the usage of the word knowledge, ilm, for these reports, they said, but it won't be more than pondered. It's restricted to being pondered, proven knowledge, not necessary knowledge. وهو الحاصل عن الاستدلال. It is that knowledge which occurs by evidence. It's earned knowledge, not granted knowledge. وَمَنْ أَبَى الْإِطْلَاقِ, and those who refuse to use the word ilm, knowledge, for these reports, خَصَّ لَفْظَ الْعِلْمِ بِالْمُتَوَاتِرِ, he reserves the word ilm, knowledge, for successive mass reports. He doesn't let the usage of ilm in this arena here of reports go beyond mutawatir. He reserves knowledge for mutawatir وَمَا عَدَاهُ عِنْدَهُ ظَنِّي, and anything other than successive mass report for whoever takes this position, then what it promotes is at most confidence. لكنه لا ينفي أن ما احتف بالقرائن أرجح مما خلا عنها. However, this one who refuses to use the word knowledge for a report that's less than a successive mass report, he does not deny that what has the clues is stronger, more preponderant, or weightier than what does not have the clues. وَالْخَبَرُ الْمُحْتَفُ بِالْقَرَائِنِ أَنْوَاعٌ, and the news that's enclosed in clues, surrounded by clues, is of various types. This news that has the clues, and it's not successive mass report, he says there's different types of those. منها ما أخرجه الشيخان في صحيحيهما, that includes what's reported by the two sheikhs in their books of authentic, in their authentic books. في صحيحيهما, in their authentic books, not absolutely. What's reported by the two sheikhs in their authentic books. مما لم يبلغ التواتر, amongst those hadiths that do not reach the level of tawatur. Yani, let's exclude any hadith in there that is tawatur, because it's tawatur already. We don't want to talk about that. We want to see, are there hadiths that are not tawatur and they promote knowledge? He says there are, if they have the clues. And the ones that have the clues are different kinds. Like those that are narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim in their authentic books, in particular. Not including anything that's mutawatir, because we already want to exclude that. فَإِنَّهُ احْتَفَّتْ بِهِ قَرَائِنْ. Indeed, he says, such hadiths in those books are surrounded by clues. Minha, amongst those clues, is jalalatuhuma fi hadha ash-sha'n. Al-Bukhari and Muslim's lofty level in this field. Yani, talking about giants that others are in their shadow. That's a clue. When we say clue, means it's not a guarantee. It's a clue. وتقدمهما في تمييز الصحيح على غيرهما. And another clue, besides the fact that they are very prestigious imams in this field, is that they are advanced in distinguishing authentic reports from others. Yani, they are advanced ahead of others. They are more advanced than others. Al-Bukhari and Muslim are more advanced than others in distinguishing authentic reports. He's saying, وَتَقَدُّمُهُمَا عَلَى غَيْرِهِمَا فِي تَمْيِيزِ الصَّحِيحِ. They're being advanced ahead of others in distinguishing, in sifting the authentic reports from others. That's a clue. So we're still talking about Al-Bukhari and Muslim. There's other clues besides Bukhari and Muslim. Besides being in Bukhari and Muslim, there's other clues. But this is the first clue he wants to give us of a hadith that promotes knowledge. And it's not mutawatir. Something narrated by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim in their authentic books. There's a number of clues that makes this a source for such reports. I just mentioned two of them for you. And now he says a third one. وَتَلَقِّي الْعُلَمَاءِ لِكِتَابَيْهِمَا بِالْقَبُولِ. And the scholars transmitting their books with acceptance. The scholars transmitting the books of Bukhari and Muslim in particular with acceptance. وهذا التلقي وحده أقوى في إفادة العلم من مجرد كثرة الطرق القاصرة عن التواتر. And this talaqi, this reception, this transmission of the books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, I know you noticed the word talaqi there. This transmission of the books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim alone is stronger in promoting knowledge about these reports than merely having a lot of chains. And we're still talking about not being mutawatir. Less than mutawatir, having many chains, a report having many chains, and still not a successive mass report. Ibn Hajar saying that itself is less of an indication of these reports promoting knowledge than the scholars' transmission of these two books. إلا أن هذا يختص بما لم ينتقده أحد من الحفاظ مما في الكتابين. Why is that? That might not be clear for you. If you understood what I said, might not be clear for you. Yani, on one hand, we're talking about having many routes for a report. Ideally stands to reason ideally. If you have many routes for a report, then if those routes are authentic, of course, then that's going to make the report stronger and stronger. Now we're talking about the scholars transmitting Bukhari and Muslim with acceptance versus a report having many routes. Which one is stronger? He's saying, Ibn Hajar that is, he's saying that here the scholars transmitting Bukhari and Muslim with acceptance is something stronger for a hadith than having many reports, having many routes, than a hadith having many routes without reaching tawatur. Why is that? The answer is, as he's going to say, because what he's really alluding to here is the consensus. He's basically saying There's a consensus on Al-Bukhari and Muslim, and the consensus is definitive evidence. So, and consensus as a religious proof is stronger than many pathways for a report. If a report has many pathways versus a hands down consensus, then the consensus itself is a definitively correct religious proof. So, but is there a consensus really about Al-Bukhari and Muslim though? He says, إلا أن هذا يختص بما لم ينتقده أحد من الحفاظ مما في الكتابين. However, this is specific only to what's in those two books and not a single scholar criticized. We're talking about here anything that's in Bukhari and Muslim that not a single scholar criticized. So, is there a consensus about Al-Bukhari and Muslim? There is, but that's general statement though. Yes, there's consensus about Bukhari and Muslim, but that's general statement. Because there are some hadiths in Al-Bukhari and Muslim that have been criticized. So then, if they've been criticized, then it's not going to promote knowledge. The criticism of the qualified scholars opens the door for skepticism, puts doubt into the report. So then those need to be excluded. So let's exclude then any report in Bukhari and Muslim that has been criticized by any, he says, ahadun min al-huffaz. Let's exclude any report in Al-Bukhari and Muslim that has been criticized by any qualified hadith headmaster. So we're not talking about anything that's mutawatir in those books, because that's already granted. And now we want to exclude also any hadith in there that has been criticized by anyone. And also there's another thing. وَبِمَا لَمْ يَقَعِ التَّخَالُفُ بَيْنَ مَدْلُولَيْهِ مِمَّا وَقَعَ فِي الْكِتَابَيْنِ حَيْثُ لَا تَرْجِيحٍ. And also, let's exclude something else. Let's exclude from what we're talking about here anything that's in Al-Bukhari and Muslim that there's a contradiction in meaning. We can't put these together. So that's two different things. Don't mix this with the previous one. The previous one is we want to exclude anything that has been criticized by a single hafiz. And also, so that's one thing. Don't mix that with this second thing here, which is that if there's something in those two books that we can't reconcile them, then that's excluded too. That's different. Don't mix those. لاستحالة أن يفيد المتناقضان العلم بصدقهما من غير ترجيح. Because it's impossible that two contradictory things would be promoting knowledge of their honesty, the knowledge of the honesty of both of those reports. Two reports that are in conflict with each other. So how could there be knowledge promoted from both of these reports? Yani, from either of them, without there being anything to preponderate one over the other. من غير ترجيح لأحدهما على الآخر. So simple words, inshallah, if there's anything in those two books that we cannot reconcile them, then that's excluded too. And then he said, وما عدا ذلك فالإجماع حاصل على تسليم صحته. Anything else in those two books, the consensus submits its authenticity. Anything else in those two books, the consensus submits its authenticity. So then he's saying, therefore, there are reports that are less than mutawatir that promote knowledge. Yani, possibly, that could possibly promote knowledge. فَإِنْ قِيل, Ibn Hajar says, if it were said, إِنَّمَا اتَّفَقُوا عَلَى وُجُوبِ الْعَمَلِ بِهِ لَا عَلَى صِحَّتِهِ. Merely, they have agreed that it's obligatory to apply these two books. They didn't agree that these two books are authentic. Mana'nah, Ibn Hajar says, we will not permit this argument. وسند المنع أنهم متفقون على وجوب العمل بكل ما صح. The base of our preventing this argument is that the scholars have agreed that it's obligatory to practice any report that's authentic, any hadith that's authentic. وَلَوْ لَمْ يُخْرِجْهُ الشَّيْخَانِ, even if Al-Bukhari and Muslim didn't produce it. If it's authentic, it's obligatory on us to practice it by consensus. And it's not a condition that the two sheikhs have reported that. فَلَمْ يَبْقَ لِلصَّحِيحَيْنِ فِي هَذَا مَزِيَّةٌ. And from this perspective of authenticity, only just authenticity, then there wouldn't be any merit for the two books, the two authentic books of Bukhari and Muslim. If merely authenticity is the issue, then there's authentic reports in other than Al-Bukhari and Muslim. So then there wouldn't be anything special, any merit for Al-Bukhari and Muslim's books, if that were the case. وَالْإِجْمَاعُ حَاصِلٌ عَلَى أَنَّ لَهُمَا مَزِيَّةٌ. However, there's a consensus that Al-Bukhari and Muslim's authentic books do have a merit. They have an advantage. There's a consensus. He says there's a consensus that the authentic books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim have an advantage. فيما يرجع إلى نفس الصحة, concerning something that refers back to the authenticity, which is what he's going to say. I'm going to say it right now. He says, وَيَحْتَمِلُ أَنْ يُقَالُ, yani this right here is explanatory of what I just read to you. It's possible to say, الْمَزِيَّةُ الْمَذْكُورَةُ كَوْنُ أَحَادِيثِهِمَا الصَّحَّ الصَّحِيحِ. It's possible to say that their merit and their advantage over other books is that their hadiths are the most authentic of the authentic. They are the most authentic of the authentic. الصح الصحيح. وممن صرح بإفادة ما خرجه الشيخان العلم النظري. And amongst who was explicit about what the two sheikhs produced, promoting pondered knowledge, Al-Ustadh Abu Ishaq Al-Asfarayini. Ustadh Abu Ishaq Al-Isfarayini or Al-Asfarayini. ومن أئمة الحديث أبو عبد الله الحميدي. And amongst the Imams of the Hadith, there was Abu Abdullah al-Humaydi, who said so also. وأبو الفضل ibn Tahir, and Abu al-Fadl ibn Tahir said so. وغيرهما, and others. And then he says what I had read already. And it's possible to be said, the mentioned merit is the fact of their hadiths being the most authentic of authentic. طيب, so being in Al-Bukhari and Muslim's authentic books, that's a clue. Are there any other clues that could make a report less than a successive mass report promote knowledge? He says, وَمِنْهَا الْمَشْهُورِ. Amongst those clues is being a famous report. إِذَا كَانَتْ لَهُ طُرُقٌ مُتَبَايِنَةٌ. When a report has distinct pathways, different pathways, not like converging pathways or same pathways but different words sometimes. Distinct, different pathways for any report. Salimatun min da'fi ruwati wal ilal. And those pathways are sound. They don't have any weakness of the narrators in them, and they don't have defects in them. He's saying this is a clue. وممن صرح بإفادته العلم النظري الأستاذ أبو منصور البغدادي والأستاذ أبو بكر بن فورك وغيرهما. And amongst who was explicit about such reports, possibly promoting pondered knowledge, was Ustad Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi and Ustad Abu Bakr ibn Furak and others. And our Shaykh, he says this. In some of his books, he would say, and this hadith is mashhur, and so it promotes knowledge. ومنها المسلسل بالأئمة الحفاظ المتقنين. And another clue is for a report to have a series of top-rated hadith headmasters, mutqinin, experts. Yani everyone in the chain is like that. Everyone in the chain is like that. حيث لا يكون غريبا, but in a way that the report is not a report of an individual, of a loner, yani, of a loner. كالحديث الذي يرويه أحمد بن حنبل مثلا, like a hadith narrated by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, for example. ويشاركه فيه غيره, and others like him also reported. Yani others at his level. When I say level, I mean his level in the report, in the reporting. I don't mean his level in the knowledge here, because you know that the reporters have levels. Like there's the level of the companions, the level of the tabi'un, the level of those who come after the tabi'un. So a hadith narrated by Ahmad ibn Hanbal, for example, وَيُشَارِكُهُ فِيهِ غَيْرُهُ, and others report it too. Ani Shafi'i, and Ahmad reports it from Ash-Shafi'i, وَيُشَارِكُهُ فِيهِ غَيْرُهُ, and others report it too. An Malik ibn Anas, from Malik ibn Anas. فإنه يفيد العلم عند سامعه بالاستدلال من جهة جلالة رواته. This would promote knowledge for who hears it, but proven knowledge, inferred knowledge. Based on what? What's his proof that makes him arrive at knowledge here? The greatness of the narrators. The greatness of the narrators. وأن فيهم من الصفات اللائقة الموجبة للقبول ما يقوم مقام العدد الكثير من غيرهم. Because these great narrators, they have the qualities that demand acceptance. And these qualities that they have, these qualifications that they have, replaces big numbers of others. Replaces big numbers of others. So this is a difference between the previous clue. Previous clue was being mashhur, having many reporters, many pathways, having many pathways. He didn't say pathways of great scholars. He just said pathways. This multiplicity of pathways is a clue. And then there's something different from that, which is what? That the report has in its chain a series of elite imams. Series of them means one after the next, after the next, after the next. has a series of elite imams. These elite imams, because of their status, their high status, their knowledge, their accuracy, etc., they take the place of big numbers. ولا يتشكك من له أدنى ممارسة بالعلم وأخبار الناس. And not a single person who has the slightest acquaintance with knowledge doubts, or he has the slightest acquaintance with the reports of the people, doubts أن مالكا مثلا لو شافهه بخبر أنه صادق فيه. That if Malik, for example, told him some news, that he's telling him the truth. فإذا انضاف إليه من هو في تلك الدرجة ازداد قوة. So if you add to him who has that same level, it gets stronger. وَبَعُدَ مَا يُخْشَى عَلَيْهِ مِنَ السَّهْوِ. And it makes it less likely that the forgetfulness that's feared is there. When everyone in the chain is a master, it makes it less likely that what we would fear of, some slip, some forgetfulness, etc., is there. وهذه الأنواع التي ذكرناها لا يحصل العلم بصدق الخبر منها إلا للعالم بالحديث المتبحر فيه. And these types that we have mentioned, knowledge of the honesty of the report, the truthfulness of the report, knowledge doesn't come from them except for a scholar of hadith who is vastly knowledgeable. Mutabahir, he's like a sea. The one who has delved in knowledge. Al-arifu bi ahwali ruwat, and he knows the situations of the narrators. Like imagine, he knows all the biographies and of all the reporters in Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, katha wa katha wa katha, Malik, Ahmad, katha wa katha. He knows all those reporters, for example. The reporters that he doesn't know are fewer than those that he does know. Al-Muttali'u ala al-ilal, the one who is aware of the defects, the one who's aware of the defects in the reports. This is the one who would have such knowledge from these reports that are less than successive mass narrations. وكون غيره لا يحصل له العلم بصدق ذلك. And for another person to not have the knowledge of this truthfulness, بقصوره عن الأوصاف المذكورة التي ذكرناها, because of his lacking the qualities that we have mentioned. لا ينفي حصول العلم للمتبحر المذكور. This doesn't negate that the vastly knowledgeable scholar could have such knowledge, because someone who doesn't have the knowledge of the scholar wouldn't get that knowledge from these reports, doesn't negate that such a scholar could. Yeah, so all what we said here, this is important even if you're not hadith scholar, even if you don't know a lot of hadiths, but this will help you defend the religion very well. And when you internalize this information, also gives you an idea about how to acquire the knowledge and how to pass it. He says, وَمُحَصَّلُ الْأَنْوَاعِ الثَّلَاثَةِ الَّتِي ذَكَرْنَاهَا. The summary of the three types that we have mentioned, أَنَّ الْأَوَّلَ يَخْتَصُّ بِالصَّحِيحَيْنِ, is that the first clue is particular to the two authentic books. وَالثَّانِي بِمَا لَهُ طُرُقٌ مُتَعَدِّدَةٌ. The second clue is having many routes, many pathways. وَالثَّالِثَ بِمَا رَوَاهُ الْأَئِمَّةِ. And the third clue is being successively narrated by top-ranking imams. وَيُمْكِنُ اجْتِمَاعُ الثَّلَاثَةِ فِي حَدِيثٍ وَاحِدٍ. It's possible that all of this would exist in one hadith that's less than a successive mass report. وَلَا يَبْعُدُ حِينَئِذٍ الْقَطْعُ بِصِدْقِهِ. And then it's not far-fetched to be certain, definitively, that it is true. Wallahu a'lam, and Allah knows best. So stop there.